So it looked like Shedeur Sanders took to the internet to show some love to one of his teammates. Now, this has been a connection that has been growing, man, over the last year and a half. That is Shedeur and running back Quinshon Judkins. So we know both of these guys was rookies coming out of the 2025 class. And both of them, pretty much to me, this is my opinion, had outstanding rookie seasons. That is this post right here. Shedeur Sanders showing love to Quinshon Judkins during the workout sessions, man. So it looked like these young men has been growing a bond. So if they get another quarterback, that's going to indicate to me, possibly, because it still could be Jimmy Haslam making all these decisions, that they want to move possibly in another direction from Shedeur. If they get a wide receiver, that will indicate to me that they want to help Shedeur.
The Cleveland Browns just made the absolute worst mistake of their entire lives, and Shedeur Sanders is officially done playing their games. To the casual observer, it looked like a simple, harmless Instagram post. Shedeur took to the internet to show some love to his teammate, rookie running back Quinshon Judkins, during a gritty off-season workout session. But if you understand the absolute toxic political warfare currently ripping through the Cleveland Browns organization, you immediately recognize that photo for what it actually was. It was not a coincidence. It was not just a friendly caption and a heart emoji. That was a highly calculated, massive warning shot fired in public for the entire NFL to see. Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland front office should be sweating profusely right now, because while they were busy playing political chess, Shedeur Sanders just quietly orchestrated a locker room coup. Is the Cleveland Browns franchise already a complete, unmitigated disaster before the 2026 season even begins? Let me know in the comments, because what we are about to break down is the exact kind of guarded, inside information that completely changes absolutely everything you thought you knew about this explosive situation.
Now, from what I've been hearing and different reports that has been coming out, is that Shedeur Sanders has something no other quarterback has. That is the Cleveland Browns locker room. Now, we know Shedeur Sanders always making his business to get acclimated and build a bond with his teammates. He's been doing it in Jackson State, and he's definitely doing it on a pro level. This is something that you want to see your quarterback does. That is be the leader of men within that ball club. Now, I don't know what type of relationship Deshaun Watson may have. We know that he's been with the team for quite some time, and just like any other damn player that's been there for a while, we know the Browns do a lot of moving and shaking when it comes to players. Now, this last little class that came in, I feel like the Browns are going to hold on to these young guys for a while. We've been hearing different reports from Andrew Berry that they're going to be getting more young guys to bring into the fold. Hopefully it's not a quarterback, but it is what it is. The most interesting part about this season, I feel like, is going to be who they draft.
Shedeur Sanders did not just post a picture. He made a definitive statement of power, while the entire NFL media apparatus was busy writing him off, aggressively questioning his attitude, calling him too cocky, too difficult, and labeling him a massive distraction. This young man was quietly in the gym, putting in the brutal, unglamorous work, and building incredibly real, unbreakable bonds with his teammates. That specific post with Quinshon Judkins was Shedeur loudly telling the entire league that he is completely locked in. He is actively building an empire, and he absolutely does not need the validation or approval of the front office suits, who never truly believed in him anyway. Think about the gravity of that connection for a second. These two young men came into the brutal NFL landscape together. The exact same draft class, the exact same crushing pressure, and the exact same analysts actively doubting their transition to the pros. And instead of crumbling under all of that suffocating noise, they found each other and built a deeply rooted connection that has been organically growing for over a year and a half. That kind of intense brotherhood bond absolutely does not happen by accident. That is two fierce competitors who look at each other and instantly recognize the exact same hunger. So while the bitter haters were busy making loud, empty noise online, Shedeur was quietly building something incredibly real, something highly dangerous, and something that is going to matter deeply when the regular season finally starts and the stadium lights come on.
And is a lot of people will talk about his stats and, hey, he threw more interceptions and touchdowns and his EPA this and his EPA that, and this was bad. Well, what they did with him at quarterback was they won games. And that, to me, is one of the most important things for the quarterback position. When you step into the huddle, when you step on the field, do you believe that you have a chance to win with the guy that is in the huddle with you at quarterback? And the Cleveland Browns locker room believes they can win with Shedeur Sanders. That they don't believe they can win with Deshaun Watson. They don't believe that they can win with Dylan Gabriel. And that, to me, says this should be the guy, and it's his job to lose at that point.
Now, let's talk about what this specific bond actually means on the physical football field, because this is where the situation gets incredibly serious for the rest of the AFC North. Quinshon Judkins had an absolutely outstanding rookie season. Nobody in the media can take that undeniable fact away from him. And Shedeur, even in the absolute chaotic middle of all the front office dysfunction, even with the offensive line falling apart around him in Cleveland, still aggressively showed up and still performed at a high level. Ask yourself this very simple, brutally honest question. How many rookie quarterbacks could walk into that specific toxic situation and not completely psychologically fall apart? How many rookies could handle the crushing, suffocating pressure of an entire city without completely breaking? The analysts who spent all year loudly calling Shedeur soft, calling him an arrogant diva, calling him a mere product of his famous father's name. Where exactly are those people hiding right now? Because the game tape absolutely does not lie. The grueling off-season work does not lie. And that highly publicized photo with Judkins absolutely does not lie either. These two explosive players are deeply connected. They are aggressively building chemistry. They are heavily investing in each other's success. And that is exactly, precisely what a true franchise quarterback is supposed to do. That is raw, authentic leadership. That is the exact kind of intangible trait that actually wins gritty, violent games in November. When everything is on the line, the stadium is deafeningly loud, and the pressure is suffocating. Shedeur is absolutely not running from this massive moment. He is meticulously preparing for it, and the executives who stubbornly refuse to see that are going to look absolutely, historically foolish by the end of next season. But here is the dark political reality that should genuinely terrify Jimmy Haslam, and absolutely everyone sitting in that Browns front office right now. The impending draft decisions they are about to make next are going to publicly tell us absolutely everything we need to know about the future of this franchise. This is a massive, catastrophic disaster waiting to happen if they get it wrong. If the Cleveland Browns brazenly use their premium draft picks to bring in another quarterback, that is absolutely not a football decision. That is a deeply cynical political move. That is owner Jimmy Haslam aggressively putting his own massive ego far above the long-term future of this franchise. And every single loyal, long-suffering fan in Cleveland should be absolutely furious about that level of betrayal. But if they bring in an elite wide receiver, if they aggressively bring in offensive weapons, if they actually heavily invest in building a fortress around Shedeur, then maybe, just maybe, there is still a tiny closing window to fix what they broke. The front office has already aggressively divided this team from within. Absolutely everyone in the building can see it. The players can viscerally feel it. And Shedeur's viral post is the ultimate proof that he is absolutely not sitting around waiting for the executives to figure it out. He is aggressively building his own foundation, his own deep connections, and his own support system inside the protective walls of that locker room. And when this specific team finally starts winning football games, absolutely nobody is going to credit the wealthy suits in the front office. They are going to credit the young man who stubbornly refused to quit when almost everyone in that building was actively, secretly working against him. Here is the brutal, undeniable truth that the vocal dooters absolutely never want to admit out loud. Shedeur Sanders walked into the notoriously difficult Cleveland Browns locker room and accomplished something that most highly paid, tenured veteran quarterbacks never even bother to do. He made it his absolute business to deeply know his teammates, He made it his daily obsessive mission to build real authentic relationships, real trust, and real undeniable chemistry with the grown men violently fighting around him. This is absolutely not a small thing. This is not something you can artificially fake for the PR cameras. You either genuinely show up for your teammates or you do not. And Shedeur has been intensely showing up since day one. He did it masterfully at Jackson State. He did it effortlessly coming into the pros. And right now, in the bitter cold of Cleveland, he is doing it again at a highly elite level that is aggressively turning heads across the entire league. Think about the gravity of what that actually means for a second. The locker room is absolutely everything in the NFL. Violent, brutal games are ultimately won and lost entirely based on the unspoken trust between the players in the trenches. And this young man already possesses that trust. He already commands that deep respect. He already organically has the very thing that most highly drafted quarterbacks spend years desperately trying to build. So, when cynical analysts sit safely behind their keyboards and loudly call him arrogant, call him highly uncoachable, and call him a massive problem, ask them this one very simple question. If he is such a massive toxic problem, why exactly does every single person in that locker room completely rock with him? Why are his veteran teammates constantly posting with him, training in the offseason with him, and building with him? The answer is brutally simple. Those analysts are completely wrong. They have always been wrong, and the locker room already inherently knows it.
You look at Deshaun Watson, they paid him 260, 80, whatever millions of dollars. I don't think that they should put him at the forefront because not only do the fans not want him anymore, the locker room isn't really behind him. And Shedeur Sanders has the favor of both. He has the locker room, he has the fans, and he has the bravado and the moxie to lead this organization out of the dysfunction that they currently have. Yeah. Not only that, Todd Monken is also a really big fan of Shedeur Sanders' game and actually wants him at quarterback. Why, as an organization, would you anonymously be cowards and undercut the young man by coming out and saying things that everyone that's ever been around him as a player knows isn't true? We were there in Colorado. They covet his ability to read defenses. They covet his ability to work hard in his preparation and how much he is dedicated to his craft. For the organization to come out and basically repeat the same stereotypes.
Now, we absolutely must bring up the massive $260 million ghost haunting the facility, Deshaun Watson, because this specific, highly uncomfortable comparison matters significantly more than people are giving it credit for. Watson has been with this specific team for years. Years of endless, exhausting chances. Years of massive, franchise-altering resources. Years of the entire organization bending completely over backwards, compromising their own morals just to make things work. And what exactly does the city of Cleveland have to show for it? Absolutely nothing but devastating injuries, endless, pathetic excuses, and a loyal fan base that has been absolutely, violently robbed of good football. That is absolutely not just bad luck on the field. That is a massive, systemic leadership problem. That is a deeply toxic locker room problem. That is exactly what happens when the highly paid person standing under center is not truly, authentically connected to the men bleeding around him. Now carefully look at Shedeur. One single rookie season in, and he is already the undeniable beating heartbeat of that locker room. He is already the absolute alpha that teammates naturally gravitate toward. He is already laying the concrete foundation for the exact kind of gritty, winning culture that legendary franchises are built on. How does that glaring contrast not tell you absolutely everything you need to know? How does that not scream at the top of its lungs that Cleveland finally, miraculously, has something actually worth protecting? The Browns have spent years endlessly cycling through highly paid players, constantly moving and shaking, but never building anything that actually lasts the winter. But this new, hungry class, these young guys they just recently brought in, feels completely different. It feels like something incredibly real and highly dangerous is starting. And Shedeur is the absolute undisputed engine driving all of it, whether the stubborn front office wants to admit that reality or not. And that brings us to the absolute most important franchise-defining question currently hanging over this entire organization right now. Who exactly is Cleveland going to draft? Because that singular decision is going to aggressively define absolutely everything moving forward. General Manager Andrew Berry has been loudly talking to the press about bringing in more young talent, more complementary pieces, more raw energy to build around this core group. And that sounds incredibly insane when you step back and think about how incredibly close they already are to having something historically special. If they actually stay true to that plan, if they actually, finally, commit to heavily building around Shedeur with the right explosive weapons, the right elite offensive line protection, and the right strategic pieces, this team could easily shock every single arrogant analyst who wrote them off. But if they go rogue and draft another quarterback, if they let massive front office ego and toxic politics take over the war room, if they maliciously let the chaos inside that front office poison what is already beautifully growing in that locker room, then Cleveland absolutely deserves every single miserable, losing season coming their way. The players on the field are not the problem. Shedeur is absolutely not the problem. The chemistry in the locker room is not the problem. The massive glaring problem is whether the incredibly wealthy people making decisions upstairs are actually brave enough to trust what they already possess. And right now, based on every single rumor leaking out of that building, that is the one terrifying question nobody in Cleveland can honestly answer. Robert Griffin III recently went on national television and loudly said exactly what everyone else in the media was entirely too scared to say out loud. He absolutely did not talk about meaningless, padded numbers. He didn't cowardly hide behind advanced stats, colorful charts, and complex analytics. He looked straight at the grim reality of the situation and said the absolute most important thing about a franchise quarterback is brutally simple. Can you actually win with him? And the definitive answer in Cleveland right now is crystal clear. The entire locker room deeply believes they can win with Shedeur Sanders. Not kind of believes, not sort of believes, fully, completely, and without any hesitation believes. And that profound, unspoken trust matters infinitely more than any padded stat line anyone can pull up on their phone. Think deeply about what RG3 is actually fundamentally saying here. He is stating that when Shedeur confidently walks into that huddle, grown men, massive professional athletes who have seen absolutely everything this brutal league has to offer, look directly at him and genuinely feel like they have a fighting chance. That specific, undeniable feeling is incredibly rare. That feeling absolutely cannot be manufactured by a PR team. You cannot forcefully coach that into existence, and you absolutely cannot buy it in free agency. Either your quarterback organically gives your team that absolute belief, or he does not. And right now in Cleveland, only one single quarterback is actually doing that. Only one. And his last name is Sanders. So every single arrogant analyst who spent agonizing months ranking him below average, aggressively questioning his leadership, and heavily doubting his ability to command a professional locker room, RG3 just violently buried every single one of those hollow arguments in one clean, devastating statement.